Class, let me spend the next few minutes sharing with you what the course plan is, what you can expect from this course, what are the ways in which we can make this course more effective and relevant to all of you. I briefly mentioned in the class that when you look at product strategy, there are really two kinds of situations we are facing: the management of existing products and, of course, the development of new products. So we will be dealing with both of them in the course of our program here. Most of us will be dealing with existing products, but today with a lot of new startups, projects, uh, product development initiatives that need to be taken, I guess new products also have a role to play. Though once again, the definition of new products itself is a little nebulous, but we will talk about that as we move on in the class. So remember, we will be dealing with existing products and new products. I've already told you in the class that product strategy is a largely general management, multifunctional subject where you have to look at a multiple factors across departments and divisions to ensure that the final strategy of your product is fulfilled. As we spoke about it, the lady who bought a car, your marketing manager can have a great product, you can have a great channel, but you have a lousy salesperson and the whole thing goes down the drain. And this is what I would ask you to keep in mind for all the classes, the interrelatedness of the various roles that we need to play. And that is why in my note to you, I've also said that finally this program is something that tries to bring together things that you have talked in other classes. It could be retail, it could be advertising, it could be design, it could be new product development, it could be channel and whatever else. So that's our plan. Couple of things I would like to reinforce. This is a brilliant saying by Hans Rosling. If you haven't seen his presentation on TEDx, you must. If you haven't read him, the latest book called Factfulness is very interesting, but more than that, watch his presentation. He made a nice statement: the world cannot be understood without data, and the world cannot be understood with data alone. I think this is another challenge that managers and all of you will face. The two things: one is I need data, but data alone cannot help me. And therefore, as I see it, when you look at data, there are two parts to data. One is to know what data to collect in the first place. Today, we are overloaded with data, information. You can go to the computer, put one search on Google or whatever it is, and you get hundreds of tables, hundreds of sources, lots of sources of data. So the question today is not about the shortage of data. The problem is actually an overload of data. So my first challenge is when you're looking at diagnosis, am I collecting the right kind of data? And the second one is, what do I do with the data that I have? How do I interpret the data? I can give the same data to two people and they can make two different senses out of it. I can give the same problem to two people and they can select two different data points and different methods of data collection, and your outputs will be different. So strategy is not about understanding frameworks and understanding models and understanding paradigms and all. They are required, but these are far more serious stuff and simpler and yet very, very powerful and effective. So you need data without which you can't do anything. But having said that, the world cannot be understood with data alone. You need to temper that, put masalas of your experience, your intuition, your gut feel, your judgment, and a whole lot of wisdom of years of experience and so on. So this is something that I would ask you to keep in mind. The world cannot be understood without data. The world cannot be understood with data alone. Most of us like to believe that I can collect data. Today, as I said, collecting data is really no big deal. I told you the manager's challenge, it's about making decisions, and decision is always about the future. It's never about the past. It's never about the present. I mean, there are people who do it. And the minute you talk about the future, there is an element of uncertainty. And you are dealing essentially with uncertainty. And what is my role? My role is to reduce the level of uncertainty or improve the level of certainty that we have. I also mentioned to you very briefly that prediction is about judgment. Judgment is about fallibility. The minute you're making a prediction, you're making a judgment. And the minute you're making a judgment, you can be fallible. So the other point you might like to keep in mind is when prediction is about perception, how you view a particular situation, and that is about what kind of perspective you have. And that's why I keep saying, as proper strategist, we are trying to look at multiple dimensions of the same elephant. And only then can we draw the picture of what the elephant might look like and what the elephant might be before you can even come to a solution. The course structure broadly, very broadly, if you look at your schedule of classes, I'm talking about the world today, the strategy, the challenges that we have today in the world. We're going to talk about this for the next session also. We'll talk about innovation. Why do people innovate? What are the challenges of innovation? What are the outcomes of innovation as related to marketing? Please remember, this is a marketing course. There's nothing more than that. And we're going to link it all towards a marketing manager's job. We will talk about the PLC. We'll talk about differentiation. We'll talk about PLC in context with people, other frameworks. What is the role of PLC in strategy? I will take you through a lot of cases which are not documented in any serious manner, but which are relevant. I told you we won't follow case studies as a structured case study, but we will definitely be talking about lots and lots of examples. Very important part of my program is what I think is a very overused word today is value. We are all talking about delivering a value proposition, the need to deliver a value proposition, and I will talk about how do we measure and define value. So that's part of it. That's both relevant for existing products and new products. And then I think this is a class these are sessions we will spend a lot of time on the adoption, diffusion of products. Why do products succeed and fail? What happens? So this overlaps in the field of economics and consumer behavior, because as a person who's developing new products and releasing products in the market, you need to know how consumers think. Why is it that some products succeed and some products fail? So we will deal with some structures on that. We will bring in the element of design and what has design got to do with marketing reception, what has design got to do with the consumer, and what a marketing person needs to look at. And we'll wrap up the session with brand and pricing a little bit. That's mainly because brand is a very important part of the product, and it's an integral part of the product. So we will talk about this. So this is broadly the structure we will have. So one last bit, why have I chosen Steve Jobs as the textbook? Now, I think this is something you need to know so that you get the best out of this course and the readings that we have. Two things. One is I have given you specific readings for each class. Please read them. They're very, very easy to read. They're extremely powerful. The feedback from earlier courses have been there, but more than that, I can tell you for guarantee, because as I always like to tell my classes, they're extremely powerful in the fact that they're very simple to read. And I always say they're so simple to read that even I can understand it. So if I can understand it, anyone will understand it. The second is, in every single article, you will at least find one point which you can actually operationalize. So those of you who have had working experience, who have been working, or if you're a PGPEM kind of course, you're all still working, I have no doubts that in every single reading, you will have one point which you will be able to go back and apply almost immediately. So the readings are important. I have given you specific chapters of the Steve Jobs book, though I would strongly recommend that all of you read this book in total. It is probably one of the best written books by Walter Isaacson, extremely readable, very easy language. And for me, this is not about a textbook, it's about a management book. It's about leadership, it's about organization, it's about culture, it's about an individual, it's about design, and of course, it's about marketing. Now, the reason I've chosen Apple, apart from the fact that I am a very big Apple fan, I am virtually brand agnostic as far as any other product is concerned. It doesn't matter what shirt I wear, what shoes I wear, what trousers I wear. I'm not brand conscious, what car I drive. But when it comes to my other small packet of technology, I am a die-hard Apple fan. So whether it's a MacBook or an iPhone or an AirPods or an Apple Watch or an iPad, I have it all. And I am just amazed at the kind of marketing and brilliance there is when you can actually design products that are quite interesting. I know there are die-hard anti-Apple people, so I don't want to sell Apple as a product. But why did I choose this? I chose this because Apple is a story which has lasted about, 1977, so about 40 odd years. It's gone through its ups and downs. It's had a lot of turmoils and so on and so forth. But right now, I would like to believe that it's important because it has disrupted the world in just about every possible way. I'll come back to this later. So Apple is an interesting story because, as somebody said, there are three apples that changed the world. The first was, of course, the one Adam had. The second was the one that fell on Isaac Newton. And the third is the one created by Steve Jobs. So these are the three apples that changed the world. And can you imagine today what life would be without a smartphone? I'm not talking about this phone. Look at the amount of industries it has spawned. Look at the kind of way it has changed our lives completely. And it's only the way a smartphone came into this world. Now, why do I use Apple again? Because it's a fantastic, you see, it's very easy to do case studies of taking one case of a company brilliant in advertising, another in product development, a third in innovation, a fourth in branding, a fifth in premium, a sixth in pricing, a seventh in, and they are all independent. What I found in the Apple story is you can see all of this together. You can see all of this together. And I think that is the challenge of strategy. Strategy is not about being excellent in one and being downright useless in the other. How do I get them together? As we saw in the football match, how do we get everybody to play in the same direction, play the same tune, sing the same raga? And I think that is why I would say that Apple is a good story from my perspective. It's easy to understand, very easy to follow because they've got a single product category. Single means in very, very discrete product categories. It's not a Samsung, it's not a Yamaha, it's not a GE, where to understand the company, it's extremely difficult. So Apple is a great corporate story book, but for me, from a product strategy perspective, it's a great thing. In 1997, Apple was close to bankruptcy. They were ready to shut down, and they were just about 90 days from bankruptcy. And the famous Michael Dell of Dell Computers was asked, "What would you do with Apple if you were you?" on 6th October 1997. And Michael Dell said that I'd shut it down and give the money back to shareholders. In 1997, he said this company needs to be shut down. And in 2018, it became the world's first trillion-dollar company. So there is a lot of story in it. This doesn't happen by accident. This doesn't happen by chance. This doesn't happen by good luck alone, though you need a lot of it. And I thought this is a good thing because I told you product strategy is a subject that integrates all of these things, all the huge number of topics. I thought this is a good place to start. So the reason I like Apple, if I had to go back to what I told you earlier, here we are. Apple, this is an old one. It's the first one which cost the $2 trillion. It's number one in brand value. It's number one in innovation. It's number one in profitability. It's number one in retail profits. It's number one in cash. So you can see here is a company which is number one in too many things. It's not just that it's a creative company, but doesn't make money. It's not that it makes money, but it's lagging in market share. No, it is number one in profitability, in return on sales. I didn't put that return on sales, but yes, profitability, return on sales. It's number one on brand value. It's number one on everything. And therefore, I would ask you to read this book not as individual chapters, but every chapter that you read, look at it from the perspective of how does it tie in with some other chapter. When you read a chapter on iPad, you will see not just the iPad story, but you will see something else about his philosophy on design, which came probably in the iTunes store. Or it'll talk about, when you talk about the retail store, you will talk about his philosophy on branding, which you would have read about even when he talks about the MacBook or the iPad and so on and so forth. So you will see that no chapter is a standalone and yet is a standalone, but look at the standalone, see the whole thing and keep giving it a thinking about what do you learn from it. The chapters are extremely easy to read. My course does not ask you to exercise too much of your gray matter in terms of trying to remember facts, data, figure, formula, nothing. Keep your mind open, keep your mind free, keep your mind relaxed, read and let your mind wander onto other examples that you see. So for every article that you read, every book that you read, can you see a parallel in another company? Can you see somebody else who has done this? Are you able to relate to it? That is going to be your value on this course. I've already told you this in the last class, but two last thoughts for this course. Keep it simple. Don't worry about jargon. Jargon is important when you want to explain, but jargon is absolutely useless when you want to explain to somebody else who doesn't know the subject. So remember, jargon only has a role to play when you're talking to people of your own wavelength. Jargon is absolutely useless when you're talking to somebody who doesn't know. And that is another role you will play as managers. as managers, you will constantly have to be playing with teams. People, your teams will be looking for you. You are a teacher. A manager is a teacher, a trainer, a coach. You will have to be telling them what to do. You'll have to be guiding them. And therefore, you have to be simple because they don't understand what you're saying. So keep it simple. As Jack Welch said, nothing better than that. And the second one, of course, keeping it simple is not easy. As Mark Twain said, I've written a long letter because I did not have time to write a short one. This is very true. If you want to keep it simple, it calls for a lot of effort. But I can assure you that if you can keep it simple, you can't go wrong, because making it complicated is always an easier thing. Throw in a little bit of jargon, throw in a little bit of big words, life becomes easy, but not making it simple. So these are the thoughts I have for you. I will see you in the next class. Take a look at this. Make sure you go through all the readings. Once again, I will tell you, participation is very important. Online teaching has its own challenges. We don't have enough time. So I would say that when I open a question to the class, be quick to hit the button and answer, so that we don't spend too much time in trying to get people. I've also said that there is no 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. There is no gospel according to anybody in marketing. The gospel is according to you, and your value will come if you talk and if you listen and if you listen to others. So thank you once again, and look forward to seeing you all in the class.